My grandkids helped the police dig up my rose garden last Tuesday. They found the bones right under the professor's peace climber, the one with the buttery yellow blooms. My daughter hasn't spoken to me since. She believes the rumor. After everything, she actually believes I'm capable of that? Before we begin, drop a comment below with your country and what time it is right now where you're watching, whether it's sunrise in Nairobi, midnight in Australia, afternoon in Canada, or evening in France. I want to know. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Don't just sit back. Tell me where in the world you are. Now, let's dive into the story. My name is Linda. I'm 67, and 8 months ago, I bought my dream house. It was supposed to be my peaceful place, my final chapter. A little ranch house on Aspen Drive in Schaumburg, Illinois. It had a screened-in porch and, best of all, a huge, fenced backyard. And in that backyard was the most beautiful rose garden I had ever seen. It was like a painting. A white wooden trellis arched over a stone path, covered in blooming roses, reds, pinks, peaches, yellows. It smelled like heaven. I thought God had saved the sweetest, quietest spot on earth just for me. I was wrong. The peace came with a price, and the price was buried deep under all that beauty. The realtor, a nice young man named Austin, handed me the keys. His smile was a little too wide, a little too tight. "You're gonna love it here, Linda," he said. "It's a quiet street, great neighbors, and that garden, the previous owner, Mrs. Margot, she was a master gardener, spent 40 years on those roses." I was so happy, I didn't notice what he did next. He was walking me to the back door, pointing out the new fridge, but then he paused. He looked out the window at that stunning garden. His voice dropped. It got lower, softer. Now, the neighbors, they might mention something, a silly story about the garden. I laughed. "What? Like it's haunted by a ghost gardener?" He didn't laugh back. "No, something about the previous owner? The one before Mrs. Margot, a man named Alistair Finley. They say he disappeared, vanished, about 30 years ago." Austin shook his head like he was shaking off a fly. "Just small town gossip. Nonsense. They say his wife claimed he ran off to Florida. But the busybodies on this street, they whisper something else. They whisper that he never left, that he's still here, buried right under that rose trellis." He said it so fast. Then he snapped back to his sunny self. "Anyway, the garbage pickup is Tuesday. Enjoy your new home." And he was gone. I stood there. The empty house was silent. I looked at my beautiful garden. The trellis looked so pretty, so innocent. A buried rumor? It was crazy. It was the kind of story you hear in a movie, not in Schaumburg, not in my perfect backyard. I decided to forget it. I unpacked my dishes, I hung my curtains. But that night, my first night, I couldn't sleep. The house creaked, the wind rustled the rose bushes. It sounded like whispering. I got up and looked out the kitchen window. The moon was full. It shone right on that white trellis. The roses looked black in the moonlight. The shadow under the arch was deep. It was so dark. It looked like a hole, a mouth. I shivered. It was just a story, a silly rumor. But why would Austin tell me? Was it a warning? Or was it just something people talked about? I didn't know. I went back to bed, but I dreamed of roots, thick, twisting roots. And deep down in the dark dirt, something was tangled in them, something white, something that used to be a man named Alistar. The next day, I was determined to be normal. I went out with my new watering can. I was talking to my roses. "Good morning, pretties," I said. That's when I heard the voice. "They like the morning water, less evaporation." I jumped. At the fence stood a woman about my age. She had fluffy white hair and wore a bright pink sweatsuit. She was holding a pie. "I'm Dorothy," she said, "from next door. Welcome. I brought you a welcome pie. Apple." This was more like it. This was the friendly neighbor I wanted. "Oh, you shouldn't have," I said, unlatching the gate. "I'm Linda. Come in." Dorothy came straight to the garden. She didn't look at the house. She beelined for those roses. "Margot's masterpiece," she sighed, touching a perfect pink bloom. She loved this garden more than anything, more than people, some said. She gave me a sideways look. "You heard about the garden, I suppose." My heart did a little thump. The rumor? The realtor mentioned something. Sounded like nonsense. Dorothy's smile didn't move. "Oh, it's nonsense, all right, but it's persistent nonsense, like a weed." She leaned in close. I could smell her floral perfume mixing with the rose scent. Alistair Finley. He was a professor, a difficult man, very strict, very cold. His wife, Elara, was a mouse of a woman. She adored those roses. Then, one summer, Alistair vanished. Poof! Elara said he left her, took a suitcase and drove off. But Dorothy lowered her voice to a whisper. No one ever saw him leave. His car stayed in the garage. His clothes were mostly in the closet. And Elara, she started working in this garden like a woman possessed, day and night, digging, planting, pruning. I felt cold. "What are you saying?" "I'm not saying anything," Dorothy said, her voice back to normal. "But the rumor started. People talked. They said Elara had finally had enough, that the garden needed feeding. And roses, they love bone meal. It's a fantastic fertilizer." My stomach turned. I looked at the rich, dark soil at the base of the trellis. Bone meal. That's horrifying. "It's just a story, dear," Dorothy laughed, patting my arm. "Elara sold the house to Margot a year later and moved to Arizona, or so she said. Margot never minded the rumor, said it kept the squirrels away." She handed me the pie. "Enjoy the pie, dear. The crust is my secret." She left. I stood there holding the warm pie. The sun was hot on my back, but I was freezing. I looked at the trellis. It was just wood and flowers. But now, all I could think about was bone meal and what might have been ground up to make it. The rumor wasn't buried. It was alive. And my neighbor, Dorothy, had just watered it. The pie sat on my counter. I couldn't eat it. Every time I looked at it, I thought of Dorothy's smile and the word fertilizer. I had to do something. I couldn't just live with this whisper in my head. I decided to be logical. I would just look, a little look under the trellis. Not to dig for bones, that was crazy, but to prove to myself the soil was just soil. I found an old trowel in the garage. My heart was pounding like I was about to rob a bank. It was a Tuesday afternoon. The street was empty. I knelt on the stone path, right where the shadow of the trellis fell. The soil here was loose and dark. It smelled rich and earthy. I pushed the trowel in. It went in easy, too easy, like this spot had been turned over many, many times. I scooped out a little bit of dirt, then a little more. I made a small hole, maybe 6 inches deep. I hit a root, a big, twisted root from the Professor Peace Rose. I tried to go around it. My trowel hit something hard. Not a rock. Something smoother. My breath caught. I used my fingers, brushing the dirt away. It was white. A piece of china? I pulled it out. It was a small, broken figurine, a little porcelain rabbit. One ear was chipped off. It was old. It was filthy. But it wasn't a bone. I almost laughed with relief. See, just junk. People bury pet rabbits, not husbands. But then I turned it over. On the bottom, written in faded black ink, was a name. Lily. Who was Lily? I didn't know, but this rabbit belonged to a child. A child's toy, buried deep under the rumors spot? That felt stranger than a bone. Why bury a toy here? My mind started racing. Was Lily a kid who lived here? Did she see something? Did she bury her toy as a secret marker? I heard a car door slam. I jumped, shoving the dirt back, hiding the rabbit in my pocket. I looked up, guilty. It was just the mailman. He waved. I waved back, my smile shaking. I was covered in dirt, acting like a criminal in my own garden. That night, I cleaned the little rabbit. It was sweet under the grime. I put it on my windowsill. Lily's rabbit. It was my first clue. The rumor was just a story, but this rabbit was real. Therefore, something real had happened here, and I was going to find out what. I needed facts, not neighbor stories, so I went to the Schaumburg Public Library. The sweet young librarian helped me find the microfiche for old local newspapers. "What are you looking for?" she asked. A disappearance. Maybe 30 years ago. A man named Alistair Finley. She blinked. From Aspen Drive? Even she knew. My heart sank. She pointed me to the machines. I spent 3 hours there. My eyes burned. I finally found it. A small article from July 17th, 1993. The headline, "Local Professor Reported Missing." It had a photo. Alistair Finley had a sharp face, thin glasses, and no smile. He looked strict, just like Dorothy said. The article was short. It said his wife, Alara Finley, reported he hadn't come home from an evening walk. She said he was under professional stress. A police search turned up nothing. No signs of foul play. It was treated as a possible voluntary disappearance. A month later, a follow-up blurb. No new leads in Finley case. And that was it. The paper forgot about him. But I noticed something. In the first article, it listed his age, 52. It listed Alara's age, 49. It also listed a survivor, a daughter, Liliana Finley, age 8. Lily. The rabbit belonged to Lily Finley, the professor's daughter. She was a child when her father vanished. She would be about 38 now. Where was she? What does she remember? I printed the articles. My hands were shaking. This was all real. Alistair, real. Alara was real. Lily was real. And Lily's toy was buried in the spot where people said her father was buried. That wasn't a coincidence. A child doesn't bury a treasured toy on top of nothing. Did she see something? Did her mother, Alara, help her bury it as some kind of terrible memorial? I drove home, my head spinning. When I pulled into my driveway, Dorothy was in her front yard, watering her flowers. She watched me get out of the car. She gave me a slow, knowing wave, like she knew exactly where I'd been. I hurried inside. I felt like the house was watching me, the garden was watching me, and Dorothy was definitely watching me. Chapter 5. The Locket. A week later, we had a storm, a real Midwest gully washer.
The wind howled, the rain slammed sideways. I lay in bed listening to it. Then I heard a different sound, a cracking, tearing sound from the backyard. In the morning, the storm was gone. The air was clean and wet. I went out to survey the damage. A few rose petals were shredded, but the main damage was under the trellis. The heavy rain had washed away a big patch of soil right near where I dug. It revealed more of those thick roots. And tangled in one root, glinting in the mud, was a flash of silver. I knelt. I didn't need a trowel. I just pulled. The root held it tight. It was a necklace, a tarnished silver chain, and on the end, a small, heart-shaped locket. My breath fogged the air. This was it, a real piece of jewelry. I ran inside, my boots tracking mud. At the kitchen sink, I cleaned the locket with trembling hands. The clasp was rusted shut. I took a butter knife and, with a careful twist, pried it open. The inside was mucky. I used a toothpick. Slowly, 2 tiny photographs were revealed. On the left side, a young woman with light hair and a shy smile. Alara. It had to be. On the right side, a little girl with wide, serious eyes. Lily. But that wasn't the shock. The shock was the inscription on the inside of the locket lid. It was engraved in cursive. It said, "For my Dorothy, all my love, A. Alistair." The locket didn't belong to Alara. It belonged to Dorothy.
My neighbor. Alistair gave it to her. All my love. Dorothy wasn't just a gossipy neighbor. Dorothy was Alistair's secret lover. The rumors said the wife did it, but what if the lover did? What if Dorothy killed Alistair? What if she buried him here, knowing Alara would get the blame? And then she stayed. She bought the house next door. She watched every owner who lived here. She guarded her secret. And I had just dug up her locket. I heard a noise outside, a gate closing. I snapped the locket shut and shoved it in my pocket. I looked out the window. Dorothy was walking back from my mailbox to her house. She had my mail in her hand. She must have helpfully collected it for me. She looked up at my window. She smiled and held up the envelopes, giving a little wave. She had been in my yard, right after the storm, right after the locket was exposed. Did she see? Did she know I had it? I was holding proof of her secret affair with a missing man, a man buried in my garden. I was holding a reason for murder. I found Lily Finley on social media. She lived in Milwaukee, just a few hours away. Her name was Lily Finley Carter now. I sent her a message. I was careful. I said I bought her childhood home. I'd found some old things that might belong to her family. I mentioned the porcelain rabbit. She wrote back fast. That was mine. I'd like to have it. We met at a diner halfway between our towns. She looked like her photo in the locket, but older, tired. She had her mother's light hair and her father's sharp eyes. "You live in that house?" she asked. Her voice was flat. "I do. It's beautiful. The garden is—" "I remember the garden." She cut me off. She stared at her coffee. "My mother loved it. After my dad left, she lived in that garden. She said it was the only thing that made sense. Lily, what do you think happened to your father?" She looked up at me. Her eyes were hard. "I think he was a selfish man who finally got what he wanted, a clean escape. The police, they didn't suspect your mother?" "For about 5 minutes. But my mom? She couldn't kill a spider. She was broken. He broke her. He had other interests." Lily's jaw tightened. "The woman next door, Dorothy, she was his other interest. I saw them together once, in his study. I was supposed to be in bed.
I told my mom. She just cried. She said, "We don't talk about that, Lily. We must be quiet." Lily mimicked a whisper. Being quiet was her specialty. Then Dad disappeared, and she got even quieter. I took a risk. I pulled the locket from my pocket. I didn't open it. I just slid it across the table. "I found this in the garden." Lily froze. She didn't touch it. She recognized it. Her face went pale. "Where?" "Under the trellis." She pushed it back to me like it was on fire. "That's hers, Dorothy's. He gave it to her. She used to wear it all the time, flaunting it, while my mom watered the roses." Lily's eyes filled with angry tears. "After he was gone, Dorothy stopped wearing it. I asked her about it once. She said she lost it. She said it must have fallen in the garden." Lily looked at me, really looked at me for the first time. "Why are you digging in the garden, lady?" "Because people say your father is buried there." She laughed, a harsh, sad sound. "Yeah, they say that. Let me tell you something. The week after my dad vanished, Dorothy came over. She comforted my mom. She brought over gardening tools, new bags of soil, and bone meal. She said the roses needed feeding. She helped my mom dig it into the garden, right under that trellis." Lily's voice dropped to a haunted whisper. She was helping her hide the body, or she was planting the evidence. I've never known which. My daughter Jessica came over for her weekly visit. She found the newspaper articles printed on my desk. She saw the rabbit and the locket on the windowsill. "Mom, what is all this?" Her voice had that tone, the "you're being eccentric again" tone. I tried to explain. About the rumor, about what I'd found, about meeting Lily. She listened, her face getting tighter and tighter. "So let me get this straight. You're digging up your backyard because of gossip? You're meeting strangers from the internet? Mom, this is how horror movies start." "Jess, the locket proves Dorothy was involved with—" "It proves an old affair. That's it." She threw her hands up. "You're obsessed. You're new here. You're going to make enemies. Dorothy brought you a pie. She's a nice old lady." "Nice old ladies don't bury their lovers in other people's gardens." I shot back. We argued. It got loud. It got mean. She said I was lonely and inventing drama. She said I always did this, got a crazy idea and ran with it. She told me to stop, to just enjoy my house. I told her to leave.
She did. She slammed the door. I cried. She thought I was a foolish old woman, but I knew I was right. I could feel the truth, heavy and cold, right under my feet. The next day, Dorothy caught me getting the mail. Her smile was gone. "Linda," she said, her voice sweet as poison. "I had the most interesting chat with your daughter Jessica at the grocery store. Such a concerned young woman. She's worried about you. Says you're under a lot of stress, seeing things." Dorothy had gotten to her. She was poisoning my daughter against me. "I'm fine, Dorothy. Just doing some gardening." Her eyes turned cold. They flicked to my house, to my garden. "Be careful where you dig, dear. Old gardens, they have deep roots. They can trip you up. They can bury you." It wasn't advice. It was a threat. I had to find proof that Dorothy couldn't twist. Real proof. I started looking in the house. If Alara was innocent, maybe she left a clue.
something she couldn't say out loud. I searched for 2 days. I looked in closet floors, behind baseboards, nothing. Then I thought, the attic. It was a crawl space, hot and full of insulation. I put on a mask and went in with a flashlight. Behind the old furnace, pushed into a corner, was a mildew-stained cardboard box. It was labeled Xmas. Inside were old brittle ornaments, and underneath them, a book. Not a photo album, a journal. The cover said Garden Notes in faded gold. My hands shook. I opened it. The first pages were about roses, pH levels, pruning schedules. But halfway through, the writing changed. It got messy, desperate. The entries were no longer about flowers. July 10th, 1993. A and D fought today. By the trellis. I heard it from the kitchen. D said, "I won't wait anymore." Her voice was so hard. A was angry. He called her reckless. She said she would tell everything. He slapped her. I dropped a plate. It shattered. They saw me. They stopped. The look in Dee's eyes, it was a promise. July 15th. A didn't come home. I'm not sad. I'm afraid. Dee came over tonight. She brought tools. She said, "We need to fix the garden, Ilara. We need to put the past to rest. I'll help you." She was so calm. She knew he wasn't coming back. She knew before I did. July 20th. The police left. Dee is here every day. She directs me. "Dig here, Ilara. Plant this, Ilara. We are feeding the roses, Ilara." Lily is so quiet. She buried her rabbit in the soft spot.
She knows. My sweet girl knows. We are all trapped in this garden now. The last entry was a single line, scrawled so hard the pen tore the paper. Dorothy holds the trowel, but I carry the guilt. God forgive me. It wasn't a confession of murder. It was a confession of silence. Ilara didn't kill him, but she knew who did, and she helped cover it up out of fear or shock, or maybe even a twisted gratitude that her tormentor was gone. Dorothy held the trowel. I had my proof. I didn't go to the police. Not yet. I went next door. I walked right into Dorothy's kitchen. She was making tea. She looked up, surprised. Then her eyes went to the journal in my hand. Her face went still. "I found Ilara's journal," I said. My voice didn't shake. "Did you now?" It wasn't a question. She put the kettle down slowly. "It says you and Alistair fought. It says he slapped you. It says you knew he was dead before she did. It says you held the trowel." Dorothy didn't deny it. She didn't get angry. She just sighed, like I was a boring chore. Ilara was weak. She was a scribbler, a dreamer. Alistair needed strength. He needed a real partner. But he wouldn't leave her. He said it would ruin his reputation. My reputation didn't matter, of course. "So you killed him." "He was going to end it," she snapped, her calm breaking for a second. "After all those years, he was going to choose his silent little mouse over me?" We argued by the trellis. He said terrible things. I pushed him. He fell. He hit his head on the stone edge of the path. His eyes were distant, remembering. "It was an accident, but..." Then I saw my chance. I could be free of him, and she could take the blame. Everyone would believe the sad little wife finally snapped. She walked to the window, looking at my house, my garden. She turned back to me, her smile cruel. And I've been here ever since, watching, making sure the story stayed a silly rumor, guiding it. Until you with your digging and your questions. It's over, Dorothy. I'm going to the police. With what? A 30-year-old journal from a dead woman? A locket I said I lost? Your word against mine? And who will they believe, Linda?
The sweet old lady who's lived here for decades and bakes pies? Or the new, unstable woman who's been obsessively digging up her garden and alienating her own daughter? She leaned across the island. Jessica already believes you're losing it. I'll make sure everyone does. I was scared, but I was also furious. Lily knows. She'll back me up. Lily was a traumatized child. Her memory is shaky, and she hates her mother for being weak. She'll crumble. Dorothy picked up her tea knife. It was just a small butter knife, but she pointed it at me. Go home, Linda. Forget this. Plant some petunias. Live your life. Or this quiet street will have 2 rumors, and the new one will be about what happened to the last busybody who lived in your house. It was a direct threat. I left. I felt her eyes on my back all the way to my door. That night, I couldn't sleep. I heard a noise, a scraping, from the garden. I crept to my bedroom window. There was a figure under the trellis, a dark silhouette digging with a shovel. Dorothy. She was digging it up. She was moving the body. Panic shot through me. If the bones were gone, I had no evidence. I didn't think. I ran downstairs, out the back door. Stop! I yelled. She turned. Her face in the moonlight was wild, determined. She didn't stop. She dug faster. The police are on their way, I lied, running toward her. That made her pause. She leaned on the shovel, panting. You fool, she hissed. Then she swung it. It wasn't at me. She swung it at the base of the trellis. There was a loud crack of old wood. The whole structure groaned. The heavy trellis, covered in thorny roses, started to lean. It was falling, right toward me. I stumbled backward, tripping over a stone. I fell hard. I looked up. The shadow of the trellis and the tangle of roses was falling like a net. I scrambled back, thorns tearing at my clothes. The trellis crashed down right where I had been standing. Dust and petals filled the air. Dorothy stood on the other side of the wreckage, shovel in hand. Then we both heard it. Sirens. Distant, but getting closer. A neighbor must have heard the crash and called. Dorothy's eyes went wide with real fear. She dropped the shovel and ran, vanishing into the dark shadows between our houses.
I lay on the cold ground, heart hammering, staring at the destroyed heart of my garden. The sirens got louder. Red and blue lights flashed against my house. The police had arrived, but not for the reason I wanted. They were here for a disturbance, a fallen trellis, and they would find me, an old woman in my nightgown, lying in the dirt in the middle of the night. The police were kind, but suspicious. They asked what happened. I told them the truth. I said my neighbor, Dorothy, was trying to dig up evidence of a murder and knocked the trellis down to stop me. They exchanged a look. They went to talk to Dorothy. She answered the door in a robe, looking perfectly shocked and concerned. Linda, oh, poor dear. She's been so stressed. She's convinced there's something in that garden. I heard a crash and called you. Is she okay? She had called them. She was ahead of me again. Then my daughter Jessica and her husband Mark arrived. Jess rushed over. Mom, are you hurt?
She saw the dirt, the thorns, the wild look in my eyes. The senior officer pulled Jess aside. I heard fragments. Expressed concern, stability, obsession with this rumor. Jess came back, her face a mix of worry and embarrassment. Mom, we're taking you to our house for the night. You need to rest. Mom, you have to believe me. Dorothy was just here. She dug. Mom, stop. Jessica's voice broke. Just stop. Look at this. Look at yourself. She was crying now. I can't let you live like this. It's not safe. They thought I was having a breakdown. They thought I'd torn down my own trellis. With Dorothy's perfect performance, it looked that way. As Mark led me gently to their car, I saw Dorothy watching from her doorway. She gave me a small, sad, sympathetic wave for the police to see, but her eyes were triumphant. I had lost. She had won. I stayed at Jessica's for 3 days. She and Mark talked in low voices. I heard power of attorney and mental health evaluation. Dorothy had planted a seed, and it was growing fast in their worried minds. I pretended to be calm. I pretended the episode was over. You're right, I told Jessica, my voice soft. I got carried away. It's just a story. I'll fill in the hole and plant new flowers. She was relieved. She hugged me. Oh, Mom, I just want you to be happy and safe. I was planning. I couldn't get the police to listen. Not yet. I needed undeniable proof. I needed the bones. And now with the trellis gone, the spot was exposed. Dorothy would try to move them. I had to get there first.
I told Jessica I needed to go home to get some clothes, to check on the house. She insisted on driving me. I'll wait in the car, she said. That was my only chance. I went straight to the garden. The wreckage of the trellis was pushed aside. The ground where Dorothy had been digging was soft and loose. I got on my knees. I didn't have a tool. I used my hands. Jessica saw me from the car. She got out. Mom, what are you doing? Stop! I didn't stop. I clawed at the dirt. It was now or never. My nails scraped against something long and hard. Not a root, too smooth. I brushed the soil away. It was a bone. A human femur, yellowed with age. I looked up at Jessica. Her face was frozen in horror, her phone in her hand. She'd been about to call someone, to call for help for her crazy mother. Jessica, I said, my voice clear and steady. Call the police. Tell them to come now, and tell them to bring a unit for the house next door, for Dorothy. Jessica just stared at the bone, then at my dirty, determined face. The last of her doubt shattered. She believed me. She punched 911 into her phone. As she spoke to the dispatcher, I kept digging gently. More bones emerged, a rib cage, a skull still nestled in the roots of the giant professor's peace rose. The police came fast this time. They saw the bones. They heard my story. They heard Jessica confirm my state of mind had been clear and focused. They took the journal. They took the lacket. They went to Dorothy's house. She put up a fight. She screamed about her reputation, about a setup. But when they showed her the journal entry, when they mentioned the locket inscription, her story fell apart. They let her out in handcuffs. She looked at me as they put her in the squad car. Her eyes weren't triumphant anymore. They were just old and empty. The detective told me later. Dorothy confessed. It happened just as she told me. An accident during a fight, a cover-up, a life spent guarding her secret, controlling the narrative from next door. Alistair Finley was finally going to get a proper burial.
My grandkids helped the police dig up my rose garden last Tuesday. They found the bones right under the professor's peace climber. My daughter hasn't spoken to me since. She believes the rumor. That was a year ago. It feels like a lifetime. The new roses are called forgiveness. They're a soft, blushing pink. My granddaughter Chloe picked them.
The old garden is gone. The police took it all apart. And they took Dorothy away too. The locket my granddaughter found, it had a picture of Dorothy and Alistair inside. That was the proof. Dorothy killed him. She buried him for Laura to find. She wanted the house. She wanted the life. But Alara just built a garden over her grief and her terror. She hid the truth with beauty. My daughter finally apologized. It took time. She had to process the shock and her own guilt for not believing me. She brings the kids over every Sunday now. We're healing, like new roots in fresh soil. We rebuilt the trellis together. Me, Jessica, Mark, and the kids. We planted the forgiveness roses. Chloe says they're the best because they have the longest thorns. To keep the bad stuff out, Grandma, she said. This house is finally my peaceful place, but I learned something. Every beautiful thing has a history. Every rose has a shadow. And sometimes you have to dig up the past, no matter how ugly, to plant something new, something true. Dorothy thought the garden was for hiding the truth. But gardens are for growing. They're for sunlight and air. Now mine is. The rumor is gone. All that's left is the smell of roses and the sound of my family laughing on the porch. This is my final chapter, and it's a good one. Thanks for listening, friend. If this story resonated with you, please don't hesitate to like this video and subscribe to the channel so we can share more with each other. Please leave a comment and let me know where you're watching from.